Check out our streaming schedule for this week. We stream every single day on this channel, talking about all things sports history. And now with college basketball season really getting in the swing of things, we are doing a lot of college basketball streams, commentating the action as we get one step closer to March Madness. So join me every night as we call the best of college basketball. And now, on with our feature presentation. I'm still not over this play. I'm still not over this freaking play. Especially considering how awful the Super Bowl was, and how Eagles-Bills could have been a way better game, if only by default. I'm not over just how terrible this play was. I made a dumb decisions episode on it when it happened, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Because this play, regardless of if the spot was controversial or not, was the definition of insanity. The Bills have been stopped on the quarterback sneak 4 times already on the day. They were just running to the same side of the line with no leverage and were losing yards or getting completely stuffed. So naturally, they decide that it's a good idea on the biggest play of the game, instead of giving it to James Cook, who was playing well, or instead of doing anything else, to try the same exact play that had been stuffed 4 times already and had shown no signs of working. This play was the definition of insanity. If you look at the latest version of the dictionary and see the definition of insanity, you'll see Sean McDermott and his decision to run this quarterback sneak, which ended up costing the Bills a trip to the Super Bowl. And yet, despite all of that, and despite everything that I just said, this is not the worst quarterback sneak decision that any team has ever made against the Kansas City Chiefs. At the very least with this play, if I can defend it for one moment, and if I can say one thing positive about it, Josh Allen had both of his shoes on. I know that's the bare minimum, but Josh Allen was appropriately dressed for this play. He had his left shoe on, he had his right shoe on, and he wasn't off balance as a result. His body on the snap was at equilibrium. And the reason I bring that up? Because there was a team that decides to run a quarterback sneak attempt against the Chiefs when it mattered most, that I cannot say the same for. And it just so happens to be the team that might have the dumbest quarterback sneak attempt of all time when they try one on 3rd and 9. Ladies and gentlemen, the New York Football Giants. September 10th, 1995. It's week 2 of the NFL season, and we find ourselves at Arrowhead Stadium for this interconference battle between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Giants. For the main team in our story, the Giants, this feels like a must-win game for them in so many ways. Expectations were high for New York after a great ending to the 1994 season, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. Expectations were then quickly squashed when they lost in the first game of the season in front of a national television audience on Monday Night Football to the Dallas Cowboys by a final score of 35-0, in one of the worst games played by any team in the near 6-decade-long history of that program, and in a game where Emmitt Smith is still fighting the end zone to this day. Lose this game to Kansas City and start the season 0-2, and good luck making it to the playoffs. None of the 6 teams in the NFC to make the playoffs the previous year in 1994 started off 0-2. And only once in the previous 4 years did an NFC team make the playoffs under those circumstances. Especially with a game coming up on the road after this against a very good Green Bay Packers team, you cannot afford to lose this one. Plain and simple, you cannot afford to lose this game and do anything stupid. Spoiler alert, head coach Dan Reeves decides to do something incredibly freaking stupid. Because with just under 2 minutes left in the contest, the Giants get the ball back with the score tied at 17. The bad news for New York is that they were up 17-10 just a few moments ago before Steve Bono was able to successfully lead his team down the field, culminating in a 3-yard touchdown pass to tie the game. The good news, though, is that the Chiefs don't have any timeouts, and the Giants have the ball. Even if things don't work out, the worst-case scenario, barring a turnover, is that you force overtime. Just needs to get 3 or 4 first downs, and you can win this thing in regulation and enter week 3 at 500. On 2nd down, quarterback Dave Brown sees an opening and decides to take off for a gain of 8. The bad news is that it does not pick up a first down, but the good news is that the run is good enough to set the Giants up nicely with 3rd and 1. just need to get one more yard, and you keep the drive alive with the first down. However, as you're watching this run, you might notice something odd near the end of it. That's right, Dave Brown loses his shoe. It's clear as day, Brown gets his shoe knocked off, and at this point, he has one shoe on, and the other shoe is somewhere else on the field, with his foot left unprotected. So what's the dumbest possible play that you can call in this situation? Think for a second. If your quarterback doesn't have a shoe on, what is the, hands down, honest to God, dumbest possible play that you can call? You guessed it.
I don't think this is a smart thing to do.
Gonna snake it, now you're not gonna make it.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something look awful almost immediately. These are moves where gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of New York Giants head coach Dan Reeves. When Reeves was coaching at his stint before this, he was wildly successful, making it to the Super Bowl 3 times with the Denver Broncos. When Reeves was coaching at his stint after this, he was also very successful, turning the Atlanta Falcons around and making it to Super Bowl 33, guiding the team to their first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. You can learn more about that game by clicking the card in the upper right corner. But the stint in the middle, as in the stint with the New York Giants, it didn't really work out. Out of all the things that Reeves did during his 4 seasons in New York, this might have been the worst and the dumbest one of them all, especially seeing as the Giants did not go for it afterwards as they punted it away, and the Chiefs wound up winning the game in overtime to send the Giants to 0-2. Reeves was a pretty good coach. You don't make 4 Super Bowls by complete accident. But the man had his flaws and the man made his mistakes, and this is up there with one of his dumbest ones. This was Ray Handley-esque. So with that being said, let's take a look at why calling a quarterback sneak with a quarterback who has one shoe on is a really bad idea. And obviously, on 3rd and short, I'm not making this video under most circumstances, even if the sneak failed. If Dave Brown had 2 shoes on and he got stuffed on this play, this isn't a dumb decision. It's poor blocking on the part of the Giants and great defense on the part of the Chiefs, but it's not a dumb decision. However, there are certain things that are obviously bad, even if they're usually good. As an example, if you're 200 yards down the golf course and you pull out your 5-iron, even if it's a bad shot, I can't fault the club selection most of the time. However, if you know that your 5-iron has a loose head and looks like it's about to fall off, and you still decide to use it in that spot, then yeah, that's really freaking stupid. Because here, the Giants seemingly have 3 options available at their disposal, with 2 of them making tons of sense and not leaving themselves to second guessing going forward, and one of them being, well, the one that this man right here decided to do, and the one that still makes no sense 30 years later. Option 1, call a timeout. You've got 2 of them left. You got plenty of time. You've got 120. It's not as if time was running out here by any means. If you call a timeout with 120 left at the 39-yard line, and you get the first down, the quarterback sneak afterwards, where a quarterback is actually able to get a shoe on, you've still got well over 1 minute 15 seconds left and a timeout to drive roughly 25 yards to get into field goal range. That is absolutely doable. That is insanely easy for a 2-minute drill. If there were 40 seconds left and calling a timeout here meant that you would have had none left, alright, that's a bit of a different story. But you can afford to burn one here to make sure that you've got the right play in place. We see teams do that all the time where there's something they don't like, and they'll burn the timeout because this play is at a pivotal juncture in the game. Call a timeout, let Brown get his shoe back on, get the quarterback sneak, and still have a minute to go 25 yards. Even if you call timeout, I can't see a single scenario where you don't attempt a field goal on the drive with the ball. If you don't score and line up for a field goal attempt, it's because you gave it back to the Chiefs, and it's not because you ran out of time. If there was ever a time to call a timeout, this was the time. Option 2, call quite literally any other play, anything else. You don't want to throw the ball here because if you do it and falls incomplete, the clock stops and the Chiefs have time themselves to drive down the field and get something going. Whereas if you run the ball and it doesn't work, you get stuffed, at least the Chiefs, barring anything crazy and barring a giant gaffe on your end, are going to run out the clock and we'll get overtime. But why couldn't you just hand the ball off here? At least your running back has 2 shoes on and is equilibrium with his body. Ronnie Hampton is no slouch. He's a former first-round pick for a reason. And entering the 1995 season, he had made 2 Pro Bowls and had run for over 1,000 yards in each of the last 3 seasons. He would end that 1995 season, once again, with over 1,000 yards rushing, cementing himself as one of the best running backs in Giants history. If you have 2 options for a yard, and you're not going to call a timeout, so you're stuck with what you've got, and one option is a 1,000-yard back who has 2 shoes on, and the other option is a quarterback who is barefoot and isn't going to get any traction on that field, yeah, I know which one I'm taking. But guess what Dan Reeves decided to do here? That's right, option 3, as in a quarterback sneak with a man who didn't have a shoe on. You can literally try this at home to see why this is a bad idea. Try running around your neighborhood block with both of your shoes on. In other words, like a normal person. Then, try running around your neighborhood block with 1 shoe on and 1 shoe off. You're going to notice that one of them feels a heck of a lot easier and a heck of a lot more natural. And if you notice the difference, imagine how it is on an NFL field where you have to dodge your way and power your way through defensive linemen standing tall at over 280 pounds, all while the field is a bit slippery because of all the grass that's been flying around. Once again, one will feel a heck of a lot easier to do. And I'll give you a hint, it's definitely not the one where you've got 1 shoe on and 1 shoe off. Which raises the ultimate question. With this man right here, Dan Reeves, why on earth did he not call a timeout? Did he have that much faith in a 1-shoe Dave Brown to get the first? Did he just not see it? Was he completely oblivious to the situation? Well, we got our answer in the post-game press conference. And let's just say that even though the question was asked, I'm not sure anyone, especially the New York media, maybe the most vicious media in the country from a sports perspective, was all that satisfied with the response. Said Reeves on the situation, that's a play we automatically call. I didn't know he had his shoe off. But look, it was obvious. It was very obvious if you were paying attention that your quarterback did not have a shoe. His shoes are a different color than his socks. Have you ever played a game of spotting the difference between the two pictures and some of them immediately jump out? Yeah, if you're getting paid millions of dollars to coach and you have a working set of eyeballs, that one should have popped out immediately. On top of that, Dave Brown talked about how he felt pressure to call that play, even with 1 shoe off, because if the coach calls a play, you better call it. But what kind of culture is that where a quarterback can't even say to his coach, hey, coach, my shoe's off. I can't run this thing just yet. Everything about this play in this sequence was a giant catastrophe, and it summed up just how bad the Giants were in 1995. So what did we learn from all this? If you're going to call a play for someone, make sure that the person has all of their clothes on. If a big part of a play is getting the appropriate traction, and the player is physically unable to get traction because they're missing a shoe, then do not call that play, or call the play after you give him time to readjust. I can't believe any of this actually needs to be said. It feels like common sense that you should make sure your player is wearing both shoes before calling a play for him. Almost like saying that you should make sure that you bring a pencil to school, or that you should wear a shirt on the first date when going out to dinner with someone. But apparently not. Apparently, we need to be reminded, thanks to Dan Reeves, that plays work best when the player has 2 shoes on, and that 2 shoes is better than 1. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.